I thought I'd be going to some very weird places this week. Every time I get the chance to investigate fan-made content, I usually come out of it with a horrified face and a permanently scarred psyche. Maybe it's worth doing the research so that you don't fall down the rabbit hole. Can be pretty hard getting out of it.
You know how it works. Putting an existing video game franchise in the hands of a group of fans is a recipe for making something scary, since everyone has their own agenda and interests they want to imprint onto something that shouldn't suffer. But like anything you can access through the internet, it all depends where you're looking. It doesn't have to be the subject of future psychological studies. I realised just before making this video that a lot of community-made content isn't just making games from scratch, and that there's a lot of mods out there that make sweeping additions which lean towards more of a complete overhaul. So instead of just looking at good fan games, I've decided to extend this video out to include fan-made mods that do a bit more than just make every dragon Macho Man Randy Savage. This is why we have this annoyingly clumsy title, but I didn't want to be called up on technicalities later. YouTube comments like to do that. I know you people well enough by now. An unforeseen upside, maybe a downside, I'm not so sure, of playing a series of fan-made video games is that it gives you a free taste of a franchise you might not have played before. I asked people on Twitter to let me know of any good fan games that I might have missed out on, and it revealed to me that there's a surprisingly large number of Ace Attorney fan games. This puts me in a bit of a tricky spot because there's clearly some excitement surrounding these games, but having not played any official games, I don't really have anything to compare them to. How do I know if they're any good?
I have a decent amount of time in the run-up to these videos to play the relevant video game, make some notes on it, and then compile those notes into a coherent script. As it turns out, I had just enough time to play an Ace Attorney fan game, but not really enough to play an actual, officially released Ace Attorney game. Does that mean I'm going to prison?
Hey, Nintendo only let these games on their systems, and maybe a bit of publishing. They don't care enough to take any action. So in the past week or so, I got to grips with Ace Attorney Conflict of Interest, a fan game that, given my threadbare knowledge of the series, looks pretty damn close to what I know about the series. More importantly, I've played a fair way through the game and enjoyed what I came across. You're given the occasional reminder that this has come from the mind of a fan, or maybe regular Ace Attorney games are just this weird sometimes, but it is a solid video game. Maybe a good Ace Attorney game, but I've got nothing to compare it to. Also persuaded me that I should look into this franchise a bit more, just so I can get a better grasp of these games. Bit of a roundabout way of getting there, but I'm sure it's worth it. It's all for good. I got into PC gaming a bit late, partly because I had all I needed in the company of some of Nintendo's finest ever games, but also because it took me a little while to buy a computer that could even run these games. That and, hey, I just didn't care, it wasn't a priority. So yeah, turn up to the party late, immediately getting acquainted with Team Fortress 2, losing track of time before looking at some of Valve's other contributions. Half-Life 2 has aged pretty well and the first game isn't all that bad, but when you play them back to back you can't help but feel the differences with how both games handle things in-engine. You almost need Half-Life 1 remade in the Source engine, but Valve are making too much money from Steam and TF2 hats to care. That's why we have those fan people! And yet I'm glad I played the first game without graphical engine upgrades because it allowed me to play Black Mesa and observe how the changes improve on what's already there while allowing the core game to shine through. Half-Life 1 is a great game, and with a new coat of paint it now looks as good as it plays. Only thing missing here is a gravity gun, but we've got to keep up some semblance of there being two separate games. However, you have to approach it with the knowledge that you're playing a pretty looking old game. It likely won't do a lot for anyone who's become obsessed with modern shooters. No running for cover here, you've got a health bar, son, and damn if it doesn't drain away like my interest in Call of Duty these days. It's a good challenge. The nature of putting yourself at the mercy of a fan's interpretation of a famous video game franchise becomes inherently scarier when the series in question is Sonic the Hedgehog. With good Sonic games becoming more infrequent as time goes by, this seems to have had a bizarre effect on fans and social media accounts alike. All I know is that I've seen and played some Sonic fan games that can't be expunged from my brain, and I'd really like to use that space for things that aren't terrifying. You might think that the recipe for a good 3D Sonic game is locked up in some safe at the bottom of the ocean, and it might be. But if the situation is really that bad, Sonic Team could always hire Nope, not a clue. 3D Sonic Games Development Kit, or Sonic GDK, is a timely reminder in this world of wall-to-wall memes and sliding out of vaginas that, with the right approach, Sonic can thrive in a 3D environment. It is ultimately a development kit, so the ability to make good levels is down to the individual who makes things with it, but thanks to the Unreal Engine, gaining and losing speed is handled with the kind of reliability that has been missing from official Sonic games. You have to earn speed and momentum, meaning that you get a better understanding of how Sonic reacts to slopes and platforms, and so you don't have to rely on boost pads and bumpers. It's not very classic, but oh man, it's satisfying. Amazing what you can do when you're not making things creepy.
After a few rocky years, 2017 is looking like it's going to be a good year for Sonic. Sonic Mania is simple enough, but I think the world is more interested in Project Sonic 2017. If it isn't a bag of ass, then we don't have to worry about these fan games supposedly being able to fix Sonic and showing Sonic Team how to make a good Sonic game. It'll be a good problem if we get there.
November 2016, I made a weird video about Pokemon ROM hacks which taught me both that giving a madman the ability to make a Pokemon game produces predictable results, and that a buff Pikachu is the stuff of nightmares. But these are merely ROM hacks which are somewhat removed from fan games since they're more of a manipulation of established code than an attempt at exploring original content. Mostly because making a Pokemon game from scratch is fucking insanity given the size and detail necessary to make an RPG, let alone one with so many Pokemon in it. Is this why 9 years of effort went into Pokemon Uranium? Yeah, probably. I guess they were doing something in that time. In a similar vein to some of these weird ROM hacks, Pokemon Uranium decides to take the series in a new direction that would never be explored by the main games. The region you're walking around has been infected by nuclear fallout in some places, which results in irradiated Pokemon of all things. This is what I signed up for. You also don't have any parents around to guide you on the ways of the world, and this darker take on the franchise bleeds nicely into how it actually plays, which is to say it's really hard. Margin for error is finer than most official games, and it does struggle from time to time balancing it all out. I also don't really like the battle interface, but other than that, it's a fully fleshed out Pokemon game. Maybe that's why Nintendo took it down. Can't have anyone else sharing their secret to immortality. They're basically a vampire at this stage.
There are certain avenues that large gaming companies will never go down, but a fan with a specified vested interest will stride down with confidence. Gaming as a business is all about capitalizing on what's current and working, so revisiting an old game and remaking it for people who don't really care about it is just never gonna happen, but that is exactly what we have fan games for.
A name like another Metroid 2 remake implies that there's been a bunch of attempts at trying to revive one of the most interesting untouched adventures in the Metroid series, and there may have been, but in my 2 minutes of research I couldn't find any more, so not sure about that. It's also false modesty because it's trying to sound like it's another game on the infinite pile of Metroid remakes, but if that's the case then it has to be the king of this particular hill. Remember what Metroid Zero Mission did for the first Metroid game? How much of a chasmic gap there was between the original and the remake? Yeah, we're doing that again, but with the black sheep of the franchise. Nintendo would never care. So you have the same awesome premise of eliminating the remaining Metroids, but with faster, slicker gameplay, power-ups from other games that help speed things along, a fucking map, and a difficulty curve that ramps up extraordinarily quickly. These Metroid guys that you need to destroy put up one hell of a fight and feel more like aggressive creatures fighting for their lives than the slightly derpier equivalents in the original game. Clearly it's been made with the veteran in mind, which is something shared by Pokemon Uranium, as is the fact that Nintendo gave it a DMCA takedown days after it came out. I get that Nintendo have every right to do this since it's their intellectual property, but surely there's better ways of handling this kind of creativity than drowning it in legal action. Doesn't stop you from playing it though, you can't keep things off the internet. How dare people make a good Metroid game? Fan games under the Super Mario name are typically not really fan games. Depends if you classify ROM hacks as fan games, which I don't, but it's definitely easier to make Mario levels by using existing assets instead of building it from the ground up. There's a reason why Super Mario Maker is so much fun. Most if not all of these kinds of games are two-dimensional because that's much less of a hassle, but then you see a game like Super Mario Star Road and everything's given a bit of perspective. It's amazing to think that despite Mario starring in an impossible number of video games, that we've only gotten 5 3D platformers, 6 including Mario Odyssey. There's a few moments that remind you that Super Mario Star Road didn't come out of Nintendo, since there's the kind of challenges here that would have never made it through whatever department handles the fun part of video games, but there's also a lot of moments that reflect the effort that's clearly gone into it. Supposedly Nintendo had a Super Mario 64 sequel in the works that was absorbed into Sunshine, but Star Road is where you can finally experience this in all its majesty. Technically it is a ROM hack, but not in keeping with what's expected of a ROM hack. The aesthetics on offer here are worth the price of admission alone, of which there isn't one. There's a music level that has musical instruments you can jump around on. I love it. I love it so much. I also love how Nintendo haven't DMCA'd the shit out of it like with Pokemon and Metroid. Maybe they don't know about it, but they've slapped takedowns on YouTube videos, so maybe not. Nintendo were never going to come out of this video looking good, were they? Making a decent mod takes a fair amount of dedication to realise an ambitious idea in tangible video gamey terms. My knowledge of coding is limited at best, so I'm generally impressed by anyone doing anything, but this was before I heard about Enderal. A total conversion mod is actually kind of self-explanatory. Effectively, you're replacing so much of an original game while still keeping some important features intact that you're helping make something new with the pretense of familiarity. Sounds complicated, but increases tenfold when you hear that Enderal is a mod for Skyrim. Yeah, that tiny game with absolutely no content in it. Piece of cake to go through a complete overhaul of all of its assets. I'll do it right now. See you in 5 years, guys. I see Enderal as the modding equivalent of the typewriter scene from The Shining. It's like this insane attention to replicating the scale of Skyrim in a free game with a fraction of the manpower, and here I am making 4 videos a week on YouTube and I feel like a waster. It is spread a little thin over the size of the world, and you can feel that some quests haven't quite had the same amount of care as others, but honestly, criticizing Enderal makes me sound like a dick. It's like someone making a sculpture out of toothpicks and saying that this bit seems wonky. It is going off the assumption that you've run out of things to do in Skyrim, but if you're ever in that position, you're just not trying hard enough. Good to know it's there, though. The more variables a game has, the greater the incentive for fans to put their own spin on it. Almost immediately after the DLC for The Binding of Isaac Rebirth came out, known as Afterbirth, there were murmurs of more DLC to come with more content and even official mod support. You might know that there's a lot of variables in a game like The Binding of Isaac, and that anyone who's played it will probably have a few ideas they'd like to implement in pursuit of making it a better game. Then, with very little prior fanfare and mere days before Afterbirth Plus came out, a massive fan mod by the name of Antibirth emerged kind of out of nowhere and showed just what talented fans could do. The best compliment I can give to Antibirth is that now Afterbirth Plus is out, I very often find myself getting the two confused. Especially the new items. My god, there is no chance of remembering which game has the cleaver or the snot tears that stick to enemies and do damage over time. Maybe the timing could have been better. Antibirth lets you take an alternate path at the end of the first floor, which eventually leads to this monstrosity, but along the way you're taken through the mausoleum with teleport panels and the best music in the mod, the mines which are full of explosions and enemies that use minecarts, and the downpour, which I'm sure is really interesting, but I'm just too distracted by these gorgeous reflections. It is a fan-made mod by name alone. Everything here is of a high professional standard and sets the bar somewhere in the clouds for fan-made Binding of Isaac creations. And here I am just wanting to put more butts into the game. Black Mesa wasn't the only fan project that used the Source engine to breathe new life into an aging first-person shooter. Though that's more of an automatic occurrence since Half-Life runs on Gold Source and the actual Source engine is a big improvement, so it's an upgrade that was always inevitable. Gets you wondering why aren't more classic FPS games run through the Source conversion so we can enjoy their qualities in an engine that doesn't hate you. You know what I can't stand these days? Clickbait YouTube thumbnails, but also trying to play GoldenEye on the N64. I don't even have it anymore. I did once though. Please don't hurt me, Nintendo, I love you, fam. GoldenEye Source is a goddamn international treasure the world over. I think of games that time hasn't been kind to, and GoldenEye's clumsy aiming controls and visuals haven't stayed all that relevant in a world up to the neck in shooter games. Giving it over to the Source engine is like one giant jolt with a defibrillator. Suddenly it's 1997 again and everything feels smooth and has mouse support. This is how you remake a game without abandoning all the qualities of the original. I'm looking squarely at you, 2010's Reloaded. The fuck you got Daniel Craig in there for? Contracts, I get it, but this is where free mods start to sound wonderful. They'll inherit the earth, I swear. Fan games are kinda like cheating, really. If you have talent and resources, you can make alterations or vast changes to something that is generally agreed upon to be not working in an optimum format. That's why we have multiplayer mods for single-player games, for example, despite how buggy most of them are. Critically, all of this is done on a ground level, where you're knee-deep in instant feedback and rapid responses that usually result in the application of the necessary patches and so on. All of this is just to lay the eventual conclusion that Project M is a goddamn masterpiece. Not the bastards who developed Metroid Other M either. They wouldn't know the act of giving fans what they want if it slapped them across the face. My personal ties with Smash Bros don't extend further than spending a long time playing each game from Melee onwards, but even me with my fists of ham could tell that they slowed the combat down in Brawl. Still fun and easy to pick up, but slow. And so, Project M exists to combine the visual style of Brawl with the fluid combat of Melee, and my god it works so well. No tripping up in this game! There are, however, new stages, new taunts, new skins, and they even brought back Mewtwo and Roy before Nintendo thought to do it in Smash 4. It all comes together to create an insanely polished fighting game that unites both halves of the Smash Bros community, so they can agree that Project M is the best of both worlds. It's not one massive change to a key component of Brawl that was done better in Melee. It's a bunch of little improvements that overall make it seem alien to Brawl in comparison. The community support is absurd and it has its own competitive scene, and after years of testing and refinement, it is one of the best fighting game experiences you could ever come across. That's how you make a sequel.
This is RabbidLuigi, and I mentioned that the developers behind Project M were keen to keep support of the mod going, but this was only valid until December 2015, where after that, further developments were cancelled. You might think that this would signal the death of the mod, but communities have kept it going. You are now in a position where there is a fan-made mod being kept afloat by fans. It's goddamn beautiful.
Ladies, gentlemen, and those who aren't either, thank you very much for watching. I have big plans to do many things this year, but at the moment it's just a case of going through the motions, waiting around for things to happen, and pile up that project list. It is getting quite hefty nowadays. My application to move to Canada is virtually finished, so I can send that off, but I'm looking to get a new intro, and I need to wait a little while to get that done, and I want to make a new channel trailer, and really I've just got to wade through it all at some point and come out the other side of it. It's the kind of thing that will be good for me and the channel, but need doing eventually. Grin and bear it, I think.